So last week we discussed our key signatures that have sharps in them. This week we'll discuss flats, and just like with sharps, we're only going up to 5 flats, not all 7. Because of that, only having 5 black notes thing, it gets a little bit more complicated with 6 and 7 sharps or flats, and usually we don't run into them in the choir world, and when we do, we teach them as they come. So anyway, here we go. You left off, squeaky pen. We had one note we haven't used as do yet. That's a white note, and the last one is F. Now we're going to start using flats instead of sharps names, and you'll see why in a moment. By the way, please excuse the bone chewing sounds you hear from my dog in the background. It just can't be helped at this point. Anyway, you'll use the same whole steps and half steps to find what black note is necessary to make F sound like do, and here they are. Go ahead and give it a shot on your own. So doing the whole steps and half steps, you get F to G, whole step, and then we need a half step. So we know we're going to use this black note. And we're going to call it a B flat, not an A sharp. I'll show you why in a moment. And then we need a whole step up. That will put us up at C, whole step, half step. So when you're trying to decide which enharmonic name to use, B flat or A sharp, I think I've mentioned this before, but it's worth a reminder. You want to make sure that you have one of every letter, right? So A, B, C, D, E, instead of A sharp, C. We'd be missing B entirely. So you need something with a B in it. Okay, so then in your key signature, what you would see, and throw our clefs up there. In your key signature, you would see one B flat, like that. And so when you see one flat in the key signature, you know that F is do. So now we have the first one that doesn't start on a white note, and we're actually going to start on that B flat we were just using. If B flat is do, B flat, use your whole steps and half steps to find out which flat we would be adding to our key signature up here. Go ahead and give it a shot. So we do our whole step up from B flat, we find C, whole step to D, half step to E flat, good for you if you got it. Whole step up then, I forgot to use the arrows for our whole steps like that. Whole step up to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, and half step back to B flat. Okay, so our new flat that we need for B flat to sound like do is E flat. That's our new note. So we add it up here, and we do it up to the right on that space and on that space in our treble and bass clef. So when you see 2 flats in the key signature, B flat is do. And it's worth mentioning because occasionally people have problems with this. You see 3 flats here. Why aren't there 3 flats in the key signature? Well, because the outside 2 are the same. So don't forget that. As we keep going, there's going to be more and more black notes, and it might appear on the keyboard that there's one more flat than there actually is in the key signature, and that's why. Do is on the bottom, do is on the top, right? It repeats itself, but it's the same B flat. So B flat and E flat are both needed. All Bs and all Es lower by half step to make this note sound like do. Let's do the next one. Okay, the next do we want to give a shot to is E flat. E flat. So do your whole steps and half steps. Okay, so whole step up from E flat, we would find F, whole step to G, half step to A flat, there's our new one, whole step up to B flat, whole step up to C, whole step to D, half step back up to E flat. So again, these last 2 are the same. Right, so these are the 3 flats that we want in our key signature. All the E's, A's, and B's need to be played a half step low for A flat or for E flat to sound like do. So we already have B flat and E flat in our key signature up here. We're going to add A flat, and it's going to make this little triangle like this. I'm going to use this space here and this space here. Kind of like when the sharps had a specific pattern to kind of be in these little parallel lines. The flats are in sort of the zigzag pattern you'll see as we add them. Let's do the next one. Let's do your half steps and whole steps starting on A flat with A flat as do. So we find to start with a whole step, we go up to B flat, whole step up to C, half step to D flat, whole step to E flat, whole step to F, whole step to G, half step to A flat. So we have our 4 flats here that we need in the key signature. The new one is D flat. We need to add up into the key signature for A flat to sound like do. And again, we go do this little zigzag pattern, make a diamond sort of shape on this line and on this line. And one more. Let's make D flat do. Go ahead and give it a try. Okay, whole step up to E flat, whole step to F, half step to G flat, whole step to A flat, whole step to B flat, whole step to C, and then half step back up to D flat. So, as of course it probably wasn't a surprise that we used all 5 black notes because we're looking for 5 flats up here. And the new one is this G flat. For D flat to sound like do, G also has to be lowered. So we use this line in the treble clef and this line in the bass clef. You can kind of see how they're sort of in this pattern, like a pyramid without the top on it, or 2 parallel lines. That's how it keeps going. And if you were to add the other flats, they would be on the ends of the lines here. Okay, so this week what I'd like you to do is do the exact same thing as last week with our sharps key signatures, and that is start to get to know them by sight. So there is a sort of shortcut, if you will. If you're just looking at your flats, you can kind of tell what do is, and that is by going to the second to last flat. So on the second to last flat, if you have like a piece of paper or something, or your hand that can cover it, if you're covering your flats like this and you're moving directly to the left, whichever one is exposed first is the farthest on the right. The next one, the second one, is your second to last flat. And in our case, second to last flat is do, including the name of the flat. Okay, so this one, oops. When you see a flats key signature, this second to last one is do. What's the flat on that line? If you were to put a note on that line, that would be D. So that flat is a D flat. You are in the key of D flat major. Beware, if you say D major and not D flat major, you would be incorrect. Because as you recall, if you're in D major and D is do, your key signature is 2 sharps. Okay, so with the exception of that F that we talked about at the beginning, all the other flats key signatures have a flat in the name because the do is a flat key. Okay, so don't forget that flat. Let's do another one. Okay, so with 2 flats, you're going to the second to last flat. So if you cover it up, there's your last flat. There's your second to last flat. It also happens to be that there's only 2 of them, right? But if you look at this flat, what note do we find? B flat. You're in the key of B flat major. Okay, now the only exception to all of this, the only ones you have to memorize, you actually have to memorize 2. One of them is if there's 0 sharps or flats, you know from last week you're in C major. There's no way around that. You just kind of have to remember that. The second one is that one lonesome white note do in the flats keys, right? When you have one flat like this and F is do, you just have to memorize that because there's no second to last flat because there's only one flat, right? So F is do for the one flat, no sharps and flats, C is do, everything else the shortcuts will work. So go to the second to last flat and that is do. If you're in sharps, go to the last sharp on the right, go up a half step and that's do. And some of you, like I said before, there's not that many of them. Some of you might be better off if you prefer just straight up memorizing what is do for each of these key signatures, and that's fine. But I always find it helpful to be able to see on the keyboard as well, because you can kind of see why F is different than all the other flats keys, right? They're all on the black notes. So anyway, see how well you can get to know those, because if you know your major keys, you actually do already know your minor keys. There's just one little transition step to look at any key and go, well, it's in this major key, or it's also could be this minor key. There's two for each key signature. So we will learn those next week.